Today we're going to be talking about part 3 of navigating fertilizer prices, which is interpreting our soil test report to choose amendments. So we already talked a little bit in part 2 about how to read our soil test report, and we're going to be working with the same example report today as we did in part 2. I do want to point out that the recommendation for lime on this report is about 1 ton per acre. And we're not going to talk a whole lot about that because lime is pretty self-explanatory. There are a few different types of ag lime, but most of them that are available are very similar. So we're not going to touch on that very much. But as stated previously, lime is probably the most economical and most efficient soil amendment. So I always recommend, if you don't do anything else, to apply lime. Here we can see that the nitrogen recommendations, the phosphorus, and potassium recommendations. And it's important to note that these recommendations are annual recommendations, meaning that this is how much should be applied in 1 calendar year. So lots of times we will recommend splitting these up into 2 or 3 applications. For example, with the nitrogen recommendations of 120 to 200 pounds per acre, you could split that into 2 applications of 60 pounds per acre, and so on. So when we're looking at our soil report and trying to choose an amendment, we want to ask ourselves a few questions, such as what blend of fertilizer am I going to use, when should I apply it, and is a custom blend necessary? So we're going to talk a little bit on the next slide about what blend I recommended to this producer and why I did that. But as far as when to apply fertilizer, it's really important to do that when the forage or the plants that are there are actively growing. So even when you plant tall fescue in the fall, it's important to make sure that it has adequate nutrients at planting so that it can go through the root development in the winter, but you wouldn't want to apply those nutrients in December because the plants, while they are developing their root system, are not in a stage of active, quick growth. So it's important to apply during active growth so that the plants can utilize those nutrients and they're not being wasted. There are some providers in our area that do offer custom blends of fertilizer, but there also are some that don't. So typically what I will do before I make a recommendation to a producer on what fertilizer blend to use is call the business that they're going to be using for that purchase and see what they have in stock and work with that from there. In this case, the producer was working with a business that had triple 19 in stock, which is 19, 19, 19, and those 3 numbers are simply the percent of each nutrient in that fertilizer blend. So for example, triple 19 has 19% nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So 19 pounds of each nutrient per 100 pounds of fertilizer. So based on these recommendations, we're going to go ahead and assume that there will be 2 applications with 60 pounds of nitrogen, 65 pounds of phosphorus, and 35 pounds of potassium per acre. And the University of Georgia actually has a very useful calculator that I'm going to show you how to use now. So when we open this calculator, the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're putting that our recommendations from our soil report are in pounds per acre. Then we want to go down here and where it says pounds per 1,000 square feet, that's where it's going to recommend how much of each fertilizer blend to apply. So we want to go ahead and change that to pounds per 1 acre, because in most agricultural settings we will not be applying based on square feet. And then we're going to move down here to where it says show grades for lawns and gardens or farm use, and we're going to go ahead and click farm use. So these are the grades that are commonly used for agricultural purposes. So we're going to go back up here to where it says recommendations from soil test report, and if you'll think back, the recommendations that we're working with are for the annual or for a full calendar year. So we're going to split those in half and plan on doing 2 applications. So it is, let's go back and double check ourselves here. It is 60 pounds nitrogen, 65 phosphorus, and 35 pounds of potassium. So we're going to open our calculator back up and we're going to type in 60 pounds of nitrogen, 65 of phosphorus, and 35 of potassium. And then triple 19 is not listed as one of the default grades for this calculator, but you can go down here and type that in. And I do not have cost information on triple 19 at the moment, but if you did have cost per ton is usually how that will be priced. You can put that in here and it will also calculate the price for you and let you know an approximate price for that. So here we can see that based on using the triple 19 and for the amount of nutrients we're planning on applying, the calculator recommends applying around 315 pounds of triple 19 per acre, and that will get us pretty much right on the money with our nitrogen needs. We'll have a small phosphorus deficit, and we'll have a surplus of potassium of about 25 pounds per acre. So our total score on using this fertilizer alone is 94, which is pretty close to right on the money. And unless you're using a custom blend, it's going to be difficult to get a score of 100. Now, if you're looking to mix a few different fertilizer blends, we can go over here and we can click on 1846O. So that's 18% nitrogen, 46% phosphorus, and 0% potassium. And then we can go ahead and add potash, which is 60% potassium. And what that will do is that will give us a recommendation for several different blends. But if we look here, this is the recommendation for a mixture of the 1846O and the potash. And that recommendation gets us right on the money for phosphorus and potassium, but has us at a deficit for nitrogen. But that score is still pretty good at a 92, so that would be okay to use if that was what was available. So I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope that you have learned how to use this fertilizer calculator and choose your soil amendments. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact your local extension office. Thank you.